Hello and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend, the show where we go behind the scenes and talk to the creators of independent entertainment. I'm Jason Godbey, and with me in the Rabbit Hole studio today is my good friend, producer, EJ Argenio.
Jason, pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for coming, man. We always appreciate it when people make the schlep to Brooklyn. That's been a reoccurring theme. Getting people to come to Brooklyn is the first step.
One of my favorite boroughs. Not a problem at all.
Yeah, well, it's not that bad. I wanted to jump right into it and talk about your background, because I know that you had a whole other life before film.
Yes, that I did.
And I wanted to kind of get your origin story and how did you go from, well, talk about where you started and then how you got into film.
Well, I'm a Staten Island native originally. I thought film was going to be my future and my forever when I was around 12, 13 years old. But I was always into sports as well, and primarily a baseball player, a little bit of hockey. And when I was 14, I had a bone chip in my right elbow. And as a result, I needed some surgery. And when they did the surgery, I just turned 15. And during the operation, the doctors cut 2 nerves in my arm. And
ouch.
Yeah. And I lost all mobility of my right hand and needed to go under reconstructive nerve surgery. And because of that, I got very much into sports broadcasting and developed a passion for argument and realized I want to go that route. So that led me to Syracuse University and doing more shows like this, a lot of radio, a lot of TV on the producing end, on the on-air end. I found it to be a passion of mine and made a lot of friends because of it. Friends I still talk to today. And made a career out of that, started working for Major League Baseball and then ESPN, and then was finally with NBC, and basically my life got uprooted because of budget cuts, and I realized on that phone call when I got told I was no longer going to be with the company that I was going to finally make my move into film. It's something I had always told bosses before, and I decided this was a good time to finally put that step forward.
And prior to this, had you produced any films, or had you
short
like
packages? Not necessarily films per se, but always something that told
You've been
a
like
story.
a segment producer or something like that.
At times, yeah.
Okay.
I like to be like a Swiss Army knife. I knew certain things on the technical end. I had hosted, I had produced video and audio, so I had worked in numerous capacities in the media spectrum. But nothing where there was a set script, there was, a cinematographer, a director.
You weren't doing like fictional narrative content.
That's the best way to put it, yeah.
So you moved from that, and this is how many years ago at this point?
5 years ago.
Okay.
A little over 5 years ago.
So what were some of the challenges? Because what was the first thing you produced? Was it a short film?
Short film.
So going from segment producing to film producing, what were some of the challenges and the difference there?
I needed to see how the game plan was different. Obviously, one of the biggest challenges is financing. When you're working for a television or radio station, your set's provided. You know where your locations are. You need to focus more on content than the external factors that qualify for a good production. But in film, you want to make sure your budget's 100% accurate. You want to make sure you're raising the money that you need for all aspects, pre-production, production, and post-production. And you want to see how those game plans differ from segment to film. And that was what I realized that would be the best way for me to adapt quickly to the film industry, was just compare what I knew and then be able to compare it to what I was learning.
And did you have somebody who mentored you or helped you out, or was this kind of throw you in the deep end of the pool kind of thing?
I'd always had people that I consulted, but I have to give a lot of credit to my producing partner, Ryan Davenport, who I worked on my first short film, which is currently in the festival circuit, called In the Field. I sat down with him in those preliminary meetings. We probably knew each other a couple of weeks, and I said to him, this is something I'm looking to do long term, but I need to know how things differ. And we worked alongside one another. He had he went to film school at the University of Miami, so I had a tremendous brain to pick. And what really made things great is that, when you're working on an independent short film, the producer is where it starts, but there's no one else. You're not hiring 10 other people to go on location scouts or to hire vendors or whatever it may be.
It's very much a DIY type atmosphere. You're doing a lot of jobs.
Exactly.
And which is good, because when you first start out, you should learn how to do like all the jobs.
Yes. And that's how I started in media. That's how I learned a lot of different aspects.
Yeah, and I think it's good, like, because one of the reoccurring themes has been on this show, talking to people, especially technical folk, is been like, figure it out. Like, nobody gives you, like, a lot of times in this business, and probably a lot of businesses too, but the film business in particular, you don't get a roadmap.
No.
Like, somebody's just like, you got to go do this, and you just say, okay, and then how do you do it? Well, I don't know, just figure it out kind of thing.
And that kind of factors into that, I mentioned making that turn about 5 years ago, but the first 18 months, 24 months of that were finding out how to get onto that road. You knew what you wanted, you knew where you wanted to be, but just to even be on a road that leads somewhere, you have to pave that yourself in a way through the connections you make and through the projects you find and through the imagination you have.
Yeah, we talk a lot about like networking and learning from other people. When I was first doing this, I was lucky that I had some people that I could be my touchstones, and if I needed to learn something, especially technically, like I had people who I could call and they would be my tech support, and I think it's really good to make those friendships, and I see myself now sort of mentoring other people and working with other people that way, and it's good. I think people should do that. I think because nobody else could do this if they didn't, because even if you go to film school, the practicality of what you actually need to do as a producer, like I don't even know if that's teachable. Like it's a lot of sort of intangible, and like stuff like dealing with personalities, or like this guy is the guy that you need to take for a beer after the shoot to talk him down, or the person that you need to butter up over coffee to get them to do your movie.
That's what's funny. The interpersonal interaction is very similar. Dealing with people. If you know how to deal with people, you'll be able to work out of whatever situations may hinder you, and you'll be able to benefit from what helps you. But as far as the tasks itself go, it's funny how things can change, where I can be in a position where I'm solely there to work, but also absorb someone else's knowledge. And then just through that one phase, that one film, you're in a position where, you're always learning. And I think complacency is a huge, huge problem for certain people, that you can never stop learning. There's never going to be an aspect where it's like, I know everything about this industry. Now, you get to a certain level, you can sort of let your name speak for itself. But I also think, it goes so fast from you needing to solely learn to where you're sort of in the middle. You find yourself still learning from certain people, may not be the first person that taught you, or at least as much from that first person, but then you meet people along the way who suddenly are picking your brain. And that's a beautiful thing.
Right. And, it's like Keith Richards said about guitar after playing for like 50 years. He's like, I'm still learning. I was like, well, if he's still learning,
why not?
After being a rock star for 50 years. So, it's perpetual, kids.
And I
That's
think it's
the
that
message
hunger
here.
that keeps him still alive,
Oh,
too.
yeah. That and God knows what else he's putting into his system.
I'm going to quote this because I do like Dylan, but I can't quote Dylan. I happened to see this on an episode of Billions I was binging the other day. But if you're not busy, what is it? If you're not busy living, you're busy dying, something along those lines.
And to be in this industry.
I apologize to all you that I just butchered Dylan, so nevertheless.
So you mentioned, here's a crappy segue, but you mentioned early in the field that I had the pleasure of watching that the other night. Really liked it.
Thank you.
I thought wonderful, good production value, very good. Like the things that and tell me if you agree or disagree, but what I liked about the film was a lot of the stuff that's missing, I think, in a lot of other films. Because usually cinematography is usually decent, and everybody talks about getting a good camera, but a lot of people, they don't talk about what's in front of the camera. And that's production design. That's art direction. That's props and costumes and things like that. And what I thought about that movie was, this looks like it's professionally produced. This looks like it could be on television. this looks as good as things that I've seen that cost, I'm sure, a lot more. So can you talk to me a little bit about that film? Tell me a little bit about the film, and then tell me about the making of it.
Well, okay, the film In the Field is about a journalist who has basically draws the short end of the stick, long end of the stick, however the term goes. But he's basically designated to work during the holiday season for the holiday season's last shipment of the biggest toy of the year. And during that, during the store opening and that beginning, there's a skirmish outside the store, and it leads to the shooting and death of a young African-American girl, a teenage girl. And he's then caught in a juxtaposition of how to report the story, going to speak to the family, and realizing the hardships that come from that family is dealing with after such an unexpected tragedy, which is something unfortunately all too common nowadays. We had a brilliant director by the name of Tisha Walker, who we had met and had some great insight to how she wanted to make the film, and she also helped co-write the script with lead actor Bobby Kruger, who plays the reporter John Landon. And, we talked a lot about the elements that go into producing. I'd like to, as one of the producers, me and myself and Ryan Davenport worked very hard on, making sure all aspects were professional looking, where someone like yourself can say, oh, I could see that on another medium. But
I mean, it's important that, because producing a lot of it has to do with money.
Yes.
And you want to see that money on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think far too many people spend far too much money on things that don't end up in the film. And you can see that in sort of more amateur productions.
Yes.
Where one of the things I liked about this, it did seem like there was a very high bar that you guys were trying to hit. And, it's a short film, so I'm sure, you didn't have millions of dollars to play with in terms of the budget. And I don't know, how long did it take to film?
It was a 4-day shoot. We did 3 days in East Orange, New Jersey, and 1 day in West Orange, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, just from the first conversation that could technically put it in development to the final day of shooting was, June 2016 to the first day of March 2017.
Not bad. I mean, as production cycles go, sometimes films that short can take a year.
But for a 4-day, 15-minute film, it takes a long time, almost a year to get that stuff going.
To get the kind of production value and to get the quality that you want on screen, I'm the part of the big is, like we talked about, is raising money,
mm-hmm.
And then coordinating all that. Getting all that stuff together, getting everybody together at the right place, the right time. This is the stuff about production I personally hate. It's not my favorite job in the world. I've said it before on this show. Production, there's a reason why producers get paid the way they get paid, and there's a reason why they get the Best Picture Oscar, and not the director.
Well, you're not only making the meal, but you're making the ingredients too.
Exactly.
You're finding the right ones on top of it. Well, you may make one ingredient that may be good, but you know what? If we make it a little bit differently, it can make it even better. And that's where you want people that are professionally capable, but at the same time, you want someone that's you could see as part of a family, part of that team. And that's what we were on this film, and that's what made it, I think at least, you don't want to use the word successful because what truly defines success, but I think what makes it such an entertaining film and one that we've received a positive reaction for is because of all those elements coming together in a perfect way. The cast wasn't just focused on, acting. Everyone knew everyone, so they wanted to make sure their wardrobe was perfect, or they were handling the scene, the right way. Their reactions with the director and the other producers. The producers wanted to make sure that they weren't too overwhelmed on set, and that all departments were moving fluidly. And I think that's one of the things that we achieved that I really am proud of, on top of the overall film itself.
Right, and you're doing this with not a lot of people. I'm assuming you're
25 people.
Yeah, which for me, like,
crew outside of the cast. But
yeah, I can make a movie with 5 people, but and that's kind of the way I've trained myself, and I grew up through with like resource filmmaking and stuff. But it does. It does take a village to raise a movie. I'm paraphrasing, but like all of those elements coming together and getting everything scheduled and on time, and then like you were saying before, like the personality element of it, and making sure that these are not just people who are capable, but people who are right for a given production. And when you have that and everybody gels, you have a great movie. When that doesn't happen, it's a disaster or just a nightmare. You might make the movie, but it won't be a pleasant experience.
And especially a film like ours that deals with such pertinent sociological topics, and not just one of them, but sort of a bevy of them in the span of 15 minutes, you want to make sure people are there to put their best foot forward and they're not in it for themselves. And, it was great working with the cast. I mean, just going through that experience and finding the right actors. The young girl who was killed, we have a scene in the film where the reporter, John Landon, has to go speak to her family, which happens to be her mother and her uncle. And she also has a little brother, and that's why she was at the store to begin with, to buy the toy for her brother. And we had to do a number of auditions individually with the roles of Marjorie, the mom, Mike, the uncle, just to see how they would be. And then we would bring actors back and do different sessions with them together, because you want to see how they look on screen as a family, but you also want to make, by the fact that they could be brother and sister, but you also want to make sure that their interactions, that acting chemistry is perfect, that it nails home the scenes you want in a film, like this.
Yeah, and you've got some heavy scenes to deal with in this film, and I think that happens a lot too when people were rushing through production. Because I've seen stuff, like I've seen Broadway plays where I've been like, all right, those people are kissing now because the director told them to. They don't seem like they're not that they're bad actors, but there's nothing between them. Like you can't feel any spark. And then some people, they could hate each other off screen, but their on-screen chemistry is just amazing. Like, you see something like that just is magic, like Jim and Pam on The Office.
Yeah.
Everybody thought they're a real couple because they were so amazing together. And
well, I think Seinfeld was a successful show, not only because of how it was written and the way it was produced, but also because you bought the four of them as friends in real life.
Yeah, you did. You thought, well, of course these people would hang out together. They're all the same kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So let me ask you. So having gone through this, you've produced how many films at this point?
Just the one, and I'm currently working on a feature film that's in development that I'm really excited for. I can't speak too much about it soon, but I'll have to come back. So
okay.
if that's okay, if you want me back after this.
Can you talk about any challenges going from the short form to the long form?
Right now, like anything else, it's finding the right investors. I mean, having a broadcast background, I have a very extensive network. And what I found working in broadcast is that there's also a number of people who have worked in film. It's one thing I learned early on, so making the leap wasn't as scary. So I'm confident in the network people I have. Unfortunately, a lot of that doesn't include people who have, 7, 8-figure bank accounts where they can throw $50,000 to $100,000, $500,000, whatever it may be, into a given film. Now, I have some people and I have raised money for it. It doesn't mean I'm inept, but you want to branch out as far as you could and go to different events to meet people, because you may meet an investor at a real estate event that has nothing to do with film, but you approach him in the right way, develop that relationship and conversation, and before you know it, you have a primary investor in one of your projects.
Networking is a big thing.
Yes.
I've been a networking machine, especially and it's great doing this show because I've met a lot of people doing it, and now I have people approaching me wanting to be on the show, which is really great. That makes me feel like I'm doing
something right. Funny how things change, right?
Yeah.
How the tide changes a bit.
I think if I were to give anybody advice, if we came up with networking advice, like a nugget, going with something that you can offer people, something that you can put out for them that says, hey, here's something I can do for you. And then, John Trigonis, who is a crowdfunding guru, he was talking about like inviting people to be a part of something rather than just buy into your movie.
Yeah, you don't want them to just feel like, they're writing a check for you. You want them to be on board with something. I mean, going back to the short film, we had someone who donated, didn't necessarily put a little bit of money into the film, but allowed studio space for rehearsals and auditions and stuff that added up. I mean, a few $1,000s worth. And, we were a short film that shot for under $50,000, just to give you an idea. But in that case, not only were we polite and just said our thank yous, but we brought him down to the set. We gave him an A-class experience to make him feel like he was a primary reason we were there, which was also the case. When meeting anyone new, it's going to sound generic, but it's about being yourself. But don't always push with that project. Let things develop naturally. Yeah, it sounds like what you would get in a sales class, but it's really about
that's a lot of what it is, though.
It is.
I mean, you're not.
But you're also looking to develop a relationship.
Yeah,
you don't wanna...
and hopefully it's not like a one-off type thing. Like, hopefully, like if you do have somebody who wants to invest in, like, the other thing that people don't tell you is something similar to what John said, is like they're investing in you.
Yes.
Because the project is an unknown entity.
Mm-hmm.
The project is a fantasy that you're sort of selling them and saying, oh, it's going to be great when, but they're believing in you as a producer and they're believing in you as a person and saying, oh, you know what, I'd like to work with that guy, like not necessarily on whatever, project. But I think with something like In the Field, the selling point was you did have those hot button topics to talk about, and people could get on board with that.
And people related, and they liked how we told that story in that fashion. But when meeting someone new, you don't want to be the sly fox either. You don't want to seem like, while money may be the overall your overall goal, at least for that one conversation, you want to develop a relationship, because if things go well, you don't know where that leads to future projects you have and things that may be more expensive, or you may need that last minute investor to put your project in the go, and you want to make sure a lot of that is authentic and real. So I don't think I'm BSing people by being nice to them, but at the same time, they know that conversation is there for a reason, but you want to make sure it's done in a genuine way where you're doing the same thing. You're sort of buying into that person so they would buy into you. You're not just, looking for their checkbook and looking to, scram.
Yeah, and, you also have to realize that these people have things that they need to accomplish and want to accomplish, and like,
what's the reason they call it a handshake agreement, because each hand needs something out of that.
Yeah, and what are they getting out of it? What's the thing that I've learned in years of being in corporate world was like, what's in it for them?
Yeah.
Anyway, we're getting to the point where we're going to wrap up pretty soon, but I think this is all good stuff. Like, I think this is stuff that, because producing is hard. To me, it's hard for me anyway. Like, I've done it a bunch of times with my different projects, and
more layers than an onion in producing.
Yeah,
it's just there's something new.
It's a never-ending
job,
and you're always you're never not producing. Like once you're on a project, it's like no matter the problems come to you, you have to come up with solutions, and you have to do it in a way that makes sense for that particular thing. There is no cookie cutter response.
Being a producer isn't being the spider. It's being the spider web. Because there's every different aspect of the film is under that, constraint, and you need to make sure you're addressing each part of that web. Otherwise, it falls down.
Awesome. Is there anything else, any other tips that you would give anybody looking to get into this, maybe produce their first short or get into, produce their first project?
You may not know where to go when you're looking to, produce your first film, but just know if you have it in your heart, you already know that one person that'll lead to the next 2 people and 5 people and 10 people, etc., that can be under your professional umbrella. Just be aware of your network now as it is, and you'll be able to spot those that can help you succeed in what you want, and you just need to make it happen. No one's going to call you. You need to call them.
That's I want to embroider that on a pillow. It's like no one's going to call you. You need to call them. Very true. And we used to say that as well in my old life when I was in corporate. It's like it's not their job to answer the phone. It's your job to get them on the phone. It's your job to put something in front of them that's worth buying. But anyway, I'm going to wrap up, but I think that's a great note to leave off on.
I do want to leave. I like to leave on one other note.
Okay,
I was told it. Producing is about getting results. It's not about waiting for things. So you need to make things happen. Otherwise, they're not going to happen at all.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm going to wrap up, but EJ, where can people find you on the web? Where can people find In the Field?
They can find In the Field on Facebook right now, facebook.com /In the Field Movie. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at EJ Argenio, Argenio. I just keep my name for everything this way. It's nice and simple.
Awesome. Thanks again for coming, and I will say thank you for watching. For more episodes of No Rest of the Weekend, you can always find them on our website, btrp.nyc/podcast. You can also listen to us on all the fun places like Anchor and iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play and all the fun places that you listen to podcasts. On behalf of Behind the Rabbit Productions, I'd like to thank my guest, EJ Argenio.
Thank you, Jason.
And I'm Jason Godbey, and thanks, and we'll see you next time.